This is the Mark Struczewski podcast. Shachna Ramachandran, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me on your show.
Did I say your name right? Did I do it justice?
That was perfect.
Okay. I must say, with a name like Struczewski, I really appreciate the fact that people who like to have their names said right, so I try to say them correctly. Yours is a mouthful, but you said I did right, so I'm very happy about that. So glad you're on the show. Before we get started, I want to put you in the context for our listener. What do you do? Who are you, and what do you do?
I'm an entrepreneur from India, Mark. I'm also an author, and I started my book publishing agency called Happy Self Publishing 5 years ago. So we basically help service-based entrepreneurs to convert their expertise into a book by helping them through the entire process of writing, publishing, and marketing their books.
Okay. Now, I'm curious, this has got nothing to do with the podcast whatsoever, but do you speak more than one language?
Yes, I can speak 5.
Oh, my goodness. I envy you so much. So what languages do you speak?
English. Then my native language is called Tamil. And then our country's national language is Hindi. And I lived in a couple of other states in India. So I speak Gujarati, Malayalam. So these are the languages that I can speak. And of course, we do have these third languages like French and other things, which we just pick a few words here and there. But yeah, but in India, I'm sure any average Indian can speak at least 3 languages.
Wow. You know, I barely, as people listen to the show will tell you, I barely speak English. I'm trying to learn French. I'm in awe that you know how to speak 5 languages. I bow down to you because that is incredible, because I've been trying to learn French for like 380 days in a row now, and it's not coming to me really easily, but I keep doing it over and over again. So you're an author. You have Happy Self Publishing. I self-published 2 books a number of years ago, have nothing to do with productivity whatsoever. And I thought it'd be really cool to self-publish my own book. And one of the mistakes I learned after the second book, unfortunately, is you don't edit as you go. That's a big mistake I made. So I would write a paragraph, edit the paragraph, write a paragraph. And I got so frustrated because it turns out you're supposed to write first and then go back and edit, right?
Absolutely. That's a huge productivity killer. And nobody tells us these things, Mark, when we write for the first time. So I also did the same mistake when I was writing my book. But I was part of a lot of these author communities. So there were people to actually guide me. And they told me, please don't do that, because we as authors are so attached to our book. It's like our baby, and we want it to be so perfect that we just try to attain that perfection by trying to edit every single sentence and paragraph. And that actually leads to writer's block a lot of times. You won't feel like proceeding to the next chapter till you perfect the previous chapter. But I think that is the job of an editor. And you can actually self-edit after you finish your manuscript first before you hand it over to an editor. So I think that is a better strategy than trying to edit as you write.
I'll never forget when I went to upload my second book to Amazon. I was using CreateSpace, I think it was. And it says, you have an error, your gutter is too narrow. And I'm like, gutter? What is a gutter? I'm sitting here, I'm like, I got the book all done. I was so happy about it. And then I had to go figure out what a gutter was, because I'm thinking bowling, the gutters and the alley. And I was so confused. And writers aren't supposed to know what a gutter is. That's what editors are supposed to do, right?
No, that's what formatters are supposed to do, not even the editors.
Okay.
So this is also another reason why people spend a lot of time in writing and publishing their books, because I think as authors, you should just bring your wisdom, your knowledge, your story and message to the book. Everything else can be and should be handed over to the experts like editors and designers to do the cover, designers to do the interiors, publicists to do your marketing. And you can actually do only the things that you are supposed to do, like not just the writing, but also things like talking about the book on other people's podcasts. You cannot outsource that to somebody. You need to show up and talk about your book. So do those things yourself. Everything else can be outsourced. And you will, be shocked if I say that a lot of authors now believe that they don't really have to write the book also themselves. if they don't have the skill of writing, but they actually have this compelling message to share, they can actually work with angel writers to get the writing done as well. So as authors, you just actually put your vision and your message out there. Everything else can be done by others.
It's interesting. You called them angel writers, but I've heard them referred as ghost writers.
There's a subtle difference, Mark, and I intentionally call people who write books for others as angel writers. Ghost writers also do a good job, but they do things slightly differently. So some authors, they just want to put a book together and have their name on it. So they would just find a good writer, give them the topic, and the writer would do the research and they would put a book together based on what they think is required. So these are ghost writers. They do everything for you. But angel writers are slightly different. They will just make sure that it is the author's authentic voice and message that is getting written. So they won't go and do any Google search for on your topic. They would in fact come back to you and ask you a bunch of questions. They would interview you, get all the content from you, and just help you in the writing. So they just take up that task which you don't want to do, but everything else is yours. It is still your baby, but they are just like these midwives who help in the process. So that's the difference between between a ghostwriter and an angel writer.
I never knew that, so I learned something new on my show today. That's fascinating. I first heard of, well, it was referred as ghostwriting when Gary Vaynerchuk wrote his book, and he was talking about how we get on the phone. I guess this is angel writing,
Yeah,
because
it
the
is.
lady would get on the phone and just talk to him. I'm like, wow. So I could talk to someone, and this writer, she interviewed him, and then she wrote the book, and then he approved it. So it's actually his words because she interviewed him, and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Because, like, I'm a communicator, okay, and there are people who are gifted writers. There are people who are gifted plumbers. There are people who are gifted on spreadsheets, and I think you need to stay where you're really good and go find someone else to do that thing that you need to get done by you, like angel writing or ghost writing, however you want to refer to it. Because if that's not your strength, you could pull your hair out like I did my first two books, because then you have to know what margins and spacing and font size. Oh my goodness, I don't want to know all that stuff. And so, and I also love angel writers. It just seems more pleasant.
Right.
Ghost writers sound scary, but angel, I mean, who's scared of an angel, right?
Exactly. That's why I feel there is a necessity to have another way to represent this work and not generalize everyone to be ghostwriters. I think only when it comes to writing, people have this shame attached to getting it done by others. But if you look at other industries, like, say, Hollywood, if somebody has a great story, they won't imagine doing the direction and the casting and the editing themselves, right? They would just contribute the story and somebody else would do everything else. But when it comes to book writing, there is too much pressure on the author to do the writing also themselves. See, if writing is your passion, then please do it yourself because it's a great and a very fulfilling process. But if it is not, then don't. There is no need for you to handle that extra pressure.
That's a very good point about the, I guess, screenwriter who writes a script for Hollywood.
Right.
They wouldn't act the movie and do their own stunts and do the movie shooting. They write the script. That's what they're gifted at. I thought I wanted to be a writer. I went on to Medium and I said, I'm going to write an article on Medium every day. I did it for like 4 or 5 days in a row. And I'm like, oh, I got to write another article. And I realized that's not you. That's not your strength. And I think, like we already talked about, if it's your strength, do it. If it's not your strength, get someone else to do it, because I believe everyone is gifted for one or two things. And you should stay in that zone because you're really good at it. And you should focus on that and try to learn a new skill.
Exactly. Otherwise, the process is not going to be enjoyable.
Exactly. So, what other productivity tips for aspiring authors do you have for us?
Yeah, this is such a great question, Mark. I think as an author, if you decide that I'm going to write the book myself, then I think you need to at least dedicate 3 months of your life towards this project. Because I think once you're an author, it's going to help you reap the benefits for the rest of your life. So dedicating 3 months is not too much to ask for. And during these 3 months, I think one should first have absolute clarity before they get even think about writing, in terms of who is the book for? Why am I writing this book? How is it going to help me? How is it going to help my reader? What's exactly going to be the topic, and how is it going to be different from other books out there? So once you have clarity on the foundational things, then it's really important to dedicate at least 1 hour of time every single day. So a lot of times people think that they will write when they have that creativity flowing through them, but that happens very rarely and it doesn't happen very often. So it's important to time block your calendar for writing. Some people believe in doing it at the same time every day, so 1 hour of time every single day at the same time. But some people actually block out a larger chunk of time. Like over the weekend, they would write for 5 hours, but during weekdays, they are busy and they don't want to get distracted. So it depends on each person's style, but time blocking on the calendar is super important. And secondly, I really believe that getting into the right mindset before writing is also important. So I give out these nice cards to my clients, which is called the author pledge, which you read before you start writing. It basically helps you to recharge your mind, and basically it's like a statement of affirmation where you say that, hey, I am the author, and you mention your name. I'm the author of this book. Mention your book's topic, which is going to help whoever is your target reader achieve whatever result your book is going to help them achieve. And you also mention when are you going to finish your manuscript, and by when are you going to publish the book. Mention the date, put your signature, and read it as a practice every day, so that you believe that you're actually going to make it happen. And another thing to really visualize this is to actually get your book's cover done even before you start writing your book. So decide the topic, so choose the title and subtitle, hire a good cover designer, and get the book's cover done, just like a nice 3D mock-up, and print it out in front of you and keep it right there, so that it makes it feel real for you. And if you actually post it on social media, it's a great way to stay accountable, because now the whole world knows that you're going to write a book. So I think these are some ways to hold yourself accountable, get motivated, and with that author pledge, and dedicate that 1 hour of time every single day. Now, here's the most important thing, Mark. Nowadays, most people don't write using pen and paper. We all use the computer. But with the computer comes Wi-Fi. So turn off your Wi-Fi. Otherwise, we get distracted and we feel like, let me just do a little bit of research. I'm not sure of this particular topic. Or can I find a better word to replace this word? And then we get all kinds of other notifications and we get distracted. And without your knowledge, that 1 hour goes off. So instead, turn off your Wi-Fi. I really believe, Mark, after speaking to so many authors, I feel that 80% of the content is already there inside of you. For that extra 20%, you can always do the research after you write the first draft. So first get the first draft out there without doing any extra research. Just have that out. And for that, it's important that your workstation, wherever you're going to sit and write, is totally decluttered. Don't have any other things other than your laptop, and make sure that you don't have the internet on.
Hey there, it's Mark, and I want to invite you to become a Mark Struczewski insider and get the top 5 productivity tips for entrepreneurs absolutely free. It all happens over at MrProductivity.com. I love that. That's gold, listener. Hope you're taking notes. If you're not, you can listen to this episode again. Clarity, time blocking, mindset, the author's pledge, which is really interesting. And mocking up the cover of your book is, I can imagine you're writing a book and you see your book right in front of you. That would be very motivational. And the key to being a writer is to write. I'll never forget, I heard a story. Brendan Burchard told us that when he wanted to write his book, he started doing research, and he found some writing courses, and he found some, seminars, and he found some coaches, and he goes, I think what I'm going to do first, I'm going to reach out to a lot of these best-selling authors, and I want to ask them, what is their number one tip to being a successful writer? And every single one of them said, if you want to become a writer, you write. You don't go to classes. You don't go to seminars. You write. You just write. You cannot be a writer if you're not writing. So I think that applies to anything we do in life. We get caught up in is this the right pen? Is this the right computer? Is this the right word processor? And all that is a sneaky form of procrastination.
Exactly.
What you want to do is actually write. So you can actually start. It's not against the law as far as I know. You can actually use pen and paper. You can actually go out someplace with no internet connectivity and turn your phone off. So, if you really want to write a book, stop making excuses and start actually writing. And a lot of people, what they do, and I like to know your thoughts on this, they sit down, let's say they're going to write for the hour, and they just write. And what they do is they have a rule, they can't edit. So if they make a mistake, they just keep typing and type. They just like vomit onto the page. Do you recommend that?
Yes, absolutely. But my only request is first have an outline for the book so you know exactly uh, which part of the book you're vomiting, right? So later it's easy to put it together. Otherwise, it becomes a little aimless. So it's important to have an outline, but you don't have to follow the order of going from the introduction till the conclusion. Whichever chapter connects with you on that particular day, you can write about that.
Okay.
That's fine. In fact, I like this idea of you talking about just writing for that 1 hour. So, what I experimented in my academy was I made authors who were committed to find their accountability partners within our community. And I made them actually get on a Zoom call, look at each other, just say hi for a minute, and then put yourself on mute and just write. So you can actually see the other person also writing. You
Okay.
can't escape. So even if you don't feel like writing, you just are there in front of the computer for an hour. So that
So
really works.
they can't pick up their phone, be surfing Facebook, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and at the end of that 1 hour, they would just report to each other, hey, I just finished 1,000 words or whatever. And they would actually have a writing track sheet to mention the date, how many words did they accomplish, and which chapter was that in. And so that really helped.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why you don't want to edit is because depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed, when you're writing and then I guess you're in the creative mode, and when you start editing, you switch to the other side of the brain, right? That's why you don't want to start editing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that could also be the reason. And I think we generally are very, 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 whether you're left brained or right brain. Um, if you are probably right brain, you want your work to be more creative. So you will come up with more flowery language. But if you're right brained, you would probably want more statistics and you will go and find that information. So whatever part of your brain functions more, editing while writing will definitely delay the writing process.
Okay. Now, let's imagine someone is listening to this conversation and they're like, I've always wanted to write a book. I mean, I think I have a book in me. What would you say the first thing this person does? They have an idea. That's all they do. They have an idea for a book, but they have nothing else. What would you tell them they should do first?
I think the first question they should ask themselves is the why question, because
Okay.
people that we meet would always say that, yes, I want to become an author someday, but that someday never happens. Those who actually end up finishing their book have a strong enough purpose to write their book. So they need to actually sit down and make a list of all the reasons why writing a book is a priority for them at this point of time. For most people, it's a someday wish, it's not a today goal. So that I think is really important to decide, why should I become an author now, this year? How is it going to change my life? How is it going to impact my business and my personal life? How is it going to change the life of my reader? If they have that level of clarity, I think that is like half the job done, if you have that why, because that why will help you wake up in the morning and actually write.
Yeah, I agree with 100%. I think a lot of people, not just writing, but anything, they start doing things and then they lose their steam. And I'm like, oh, why were you doing this anyways? And when people lose their flow, their excitement, it goes back to what you just said. They go, well, I don't know. I guess I was doing it because everyone else is doing it. I said, look, you can't write a book because everybody else writing a book. You got to write a book because you want to write a book. Do you have something you're passionate about? Because anything else, if you got that passion, you can get the book written. There, like you said, there's angel writers, there's editors and all that stuff. But if you don't have a compelling why, none of that matters. And so I love how you talked about the why. You've got to get the why first before anything else. So I'm glad you said that because it's really important.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you have anything else you want to add about becoming a writer or tips to becoming a writer?
Yeah, so one recent thing that I discovered, Mark, which I thought I must talk about, is that angel writing is good for certain people who are very clear that, hey, I want this book out. I'm an author, but I'm not a writer. And I'm happy to take help, and I'll be happy to actually get this done by somebody else as long as the content is mine. So that's really clear. But there are some people who love the process of writing. They want to write, but they get stuck every now and then. They get distracted, there is no accountability, they need somebody's feedback. So for such people, I think it's important to first finish the manuscript before you hand it over to an editor. But to finish the manuscript, they can actually make use of somebody called your book coach. A book coach, just like your fitness coach or your marriage counselor or any other coach that you have for the other areas of your life, will play this role of being your mentor. They would handhold you, they would nudge you, they would, scold you if you're not doing your job, and they would also give you that important critical feedback on what you've written and what can be improved. So I think working with a book coach on a weekly basis can really speeden up this whole process.
All right. Well, that was really weird. The internet just kind of like reset our browser. So, and it caught just Jasna. Is that right?
That's right, Mark.
Caught us off guard, and all of a sudden we got all these warnings on our screen. So that was really bizarre. So if it sounds like we're confused, as we are confused, because it's kind of like someone just shut the computer off in the middle of the recording. But anyways, you gave us a lot to think about, and I'm still going back to the angel writers. I love that term, and you gave us so much to think about. I really appreciate you being on the show. So the final question I have for you is, where can we find out more about you and what you're doing in the world?
Sure. So, the best place to find out more about what we do is happyselfpublishing.com. So, authors who are ready to publish their manuscript can schedule a call with us, and we'll be more than happy to have a complimentary book strategy session. But authors who are still thinking about writing can also check out our boot camp. This happens every few weeks inside our Facebook group called Happy Authors Tribe. So you can check out happyselfpublishing.com/tribe. That's where you will get all the free book author success bootcamp.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mark Struczewski podcast. I really hope it served you well today. Now head on over to my website, MrProductivity.com. Sign up to be a free Mark Struczewski Insider. Get my top 5 productivity tips for entrepreneurs absolutely free. It's my gift to you. And until tomorrow, my friend, go be productive.